Welcome back to video 17. This time we are dealing with making a simple user profile component where we display some properties of the user and his profile image. And how we do this is we get the ID from our URL, so the user's ID from the URL, and then we give this to our user service and fetch the data from the backend. Our video structure is as always: first we have a look at our video outcome, then we write a user story for this, and then we implement the user story and close it. Let's now have a quick look at the outcome of this video. If you go to the users table, you can now just simply click on any row, and then you come to the user profile, and you see we have the username, the email, the username, and the role, and also the image if there's some image uploaded for the user. So here not, but if we go for example to our user 7, there's upload an image. This is just one of the thumbnails from YouTube, so you can upload any image here, and then it will get displayed here. Let's start by looking into our story for video 17. And here we have our story: add a user profile component to our front end. As a user, I want to be able to look at the profiles and the profile pictures. And our acceptance criteria are: we want to have a new route for the profile. So for example, I want to have here a route like users and then the ID of a user of the profile that I want to look at. Then we want to have a new component, user profile, where we display the basic information in the profile image from the user. So if I hit this here, then I want to see the user's profile with the details and the user or his image. And I want to have a routing from all our users table to the user profile on click. So we have our all users table with all the entries of all users, and if I click on one entry, I want to navigate to exactly this route here. So I want to able to look then at his profile. So we can move this to doing, and here you can see we are on our branch develop, and now we want to switch to our new feature branch. So we say git-flow feature start video 17, and now we create a new branch based on develop, and then we can start developing. So at first we want to have or we want to start our backend. So we are in our API folder, we say npm run start dev, and then we can also start our frontend. So we're here in our frontend folder, and we can just say ng-serve, and then we can open another terminal just to execute our commands. So where we want to go is into our front end. So we go cd front end, and here we want to generate a new component, the user profile component. So we can say ng, so the CLI ng generate component, and we want to name it user profile, and it should be in our components folder, so here, and then the name should be user profile. Then we hit enter, and then we see we have here a new user profile component, which is as just user profile works. And so if we now look into our front end, this is running here, and we get all the data. And now we want to be able to navigate to this user profile component, so we have to add it into our routing module, and we can do this in two ways. We could say we have path users, and then we can with this double points, we can say this is a parameter, and we can go for component and say user profile component. We can save it, then we build our front end again, and if we now go for this route, you see we navigate to the user profile. What we could also do, and what is a bit nicer I think, we can remove this here, and we can just say we have here child routes, so children, which is also an array, and then we can add here the routes. So the first route would be nothing, so the same that we had here, and then the component would be the user's component. And then we would have our ID, and we just have to remove this users here and go just for the ID. And then we should have the same behavior as now, but a little bit better looking. So when we click users, we still get our users. If we add like an ID to it, then we navigate to the user profile component. So this works. So now we can go into our user service. And now we have just functions to find all users or to paginate by name. So what we now need is another method or function where we can find one user to display his profile. And here we just want to have his ID, which is a number. And then we have a return type as an observable from the type user. And here we can just say return this.http. We want to make a GET request, and we want to make it against /API/users, and then add our ID. Then we could pipe it and map the outcome, so we get a user back, which is of type user, and we return the user. And you could also do some catch the errors here, but at first this is enough. So this should give us all the things that we need, and we could also verify in Postman that this is how we get a user. So we can look here, we have our requests and can just go to get single user by ID, and you see this is API users, for example, user with ID 7, and then we get all the data from his profile and also here the profile image path. And then we can go into our new component. So we have now our user profile component, and now we have to add here some logic. So the first thing that we need in our are some properties. So we have a user ID, which is of type number, and we initialize it with null because we don't have it. We can make private subscription. Oops. Know what happened? Subscription. Yes. And we have a user from type user. This is also null. So we need this for our HTML component later. And in our constructor we have like 3 things that we need, or 2. First, we need to get our route, or our activated route. So this gets the route from our browser where we are. So there we need to get, or we can get our ID, the user ID from. And then we have our user service, where we want to get our user. So when our ng on init, we can say this subscription is this .route. So we go to for our activated route, we go for parameters, and we subscribe to it. So if this changes, we get notified, and then we get all the params. And what we want to do here is we want to set our user ID here to the user ID that is in the parameters. And so we can just pass in, because it's always a string, and we can get the params with the name ID from our activated route. So we get here from our activated route the params, and then we get from the params the one which is called ID. And this is called ID because we named it here ID. So the next thing that we want to do is we want to have our user service, and we want to find exactly one user by ID, and then we give him our user ID. We pipe the outcome and map our user from the type user to this.user is our user. So here we get our user from our service that we found by the ID from the backend here. And then we set the user that we have here to this new user. And this is then this we can then display in our front end, in our HTML. So, and to actually work, because it's observable, we need to subscribe to it. What we can also do is we have an ng on init, and we can make an ng on destroy also. And we can just say this sub.unsubscribe. So then we unsubscribe to our observable. And for this to work, we need to add here on destroy, and then it searches. If we leave this component, it will, if we hit this component, it does the ng on it, and if we leave it, it makes the ng on destroy, so the subscription ends or is cold. So the next thing that we need is just to add this into our HTML profile, a little bit of styling. So first we can make a div, and we can say ng if. So we just want to display it if there's a user, and so if it's null, it's not getting displayed. So we prevent some errors, and we can just call this main div. It's very simple, so if you can always make this fancier and so on. And we can use here metcard and give this class that we just call card. And then we have a metcard header. And in this we can get or add an avatar. So we can say met -card -avatar. And here we just add an image. And the image, the source is like our link. So we can look this up in Postman. So we have here our download profile image. And so this is the same link. We can just add this here for simplicity. And at the end here, behind the profile image, there comes the path of the image. And so we can just insert here our user.profile. We can look it up here. Profile image. So we need this property here. And then he makes a GET request to get this image exactly like here. So if we try to get this an image, we can name get this link, add it to here. Let's see what's happening. Profile image. Internal server error. Let's upload unauthorized, so we have to log in. So we log in, then we take our access token. Because I'm on different branches, often it can be that there's one where we don't have this image. So if we now hit or upload this image for the user, and now try again to get this image, it is here. So this works. And so we are going for this path, and it just makes a GET request exactly like here. So we have a GET request to this URL, and then we can display the image, and we can just give it a class header image, and later I will add the CSS. I just made some, so we save some time. I can just copy this in and we can go over it later. So then we have in our met card header, we also have a title. So we can go for met card title. And we can just say it's the, for example, user.name. And the card also has a subtitle. And this could be the user.email. So we can just try if this is working. And I think we also have to add the card module. So we can Google for met card module and just look how we have to import it. So we just need this. Let's see if it's compiling. And so it says profile image does not exist on type user. So this is correct. So we also need to add here the profile image. And this is a string. And let's see what else is missing. So email is written wrong. So we need here an L. And this seems good. So if we now go, for example, to our user 7 where we uploaded the image, we can already see we have our met card here, we have our name, we have our email, and we see our profile image there. So now we can, for example, have not just a met card header, but we also have a met card content. And here we can add whatever you want. We can make a simple P and say the username and call it user.username. And we could also make a simple role and say this is the user.role. And then if we reload it here, you can see we have this. So we can just go over the CSS real quick. We see we have a main div, a card, and a header image. And we have here our main div. We use flexbox. We have a width of 100%, so over the whole page. And we center the content. So we have the whole page here. We center the card inside it. And our card has a width of 80%. So we have a space of 10 and 10% to the left and to the right. The max width of 80, its height is 300 pixel. Margin top is 2%, so it does not clutch directly to our navbar. And then we have our header image, which has a size cover, is 40 by 40 pixels, border ratio of 50, so it's round, and we cover it. So you can just play with this. This is nothing special, so you can always add here more things. But just as a beginning to look at a profile, this is enough, I think. Then also what we wanted to do is, if we are here on our user's page and we click onto a row, we want to navigate to a user. So how we can do this is, we have our user component here, and we can just go into our Angular material and go here for the table. Let's see, table. And can go for an example. So, or we could very simple just say, you see here in every met row we have our data, that row of our items, and then we have our header cells, so everything. And what we can add here is we can just simply make on click we want to execute a function, and that could be named navigate to profile, and there we just add our row. So the row is the user and then the ID. And now we have to add this here. So we can say navigate to profile, because now you see it says it's missing this function. And what we get here is we get the ID of the user. And we can very simply just say this.router. So we don't have it here. So we have to get it in the constructor. We have our router from our Angular router to route to a new URL. And we also have our private activated route. So to get our route. And then we can just say this.router.navigate. And here we say we want to stay at the same route and just add an ID. And here we go, we say it's relative to our active route where we are. Now we can try this. Let's, for example, so if we go, you see we go here to our user profile, and this is broken because for this user I didn't upload an image. So we could go for user 7 here, where I uploaded the image, so this is working. So I think now everything is fine. So let's just finish this up. Go to our PowerShell. We say we want to add everything. We want to commit or make a message, and this is video 17. And we can just say implemented simple new user profile component and add navigation from users table to single user profile. So we can say then git push. And then we can say git-flow feature finish to merge this back on our develop branch. This will take some time. And now you see we are back on develop. And we can just say git push. So we push now our develop branch, and I will merge it later into our master branch. Now let's check against our story. So we have a new route for our profile. We have a new user profile component, and we display basic information in the user profile image. So this can be done in very multiple ways, but this is just a very simple way to get you started. And we want to have a routing from all users table to one profile. So we also have this, so we can save this and move it to done.